Thank you for joining us today in what will be an outstanding panel on the future of business travel. Truthfully, the future feels a little uncertain today. There was a period where it felt like the economy was getting back on track. But recent developments, especially in Europe, is changing that, making the visibility into travel spend even more strategic, especially for organizations with a global travel program. Travel has long been considered an accepted cost of doing business. In fact, travel expenses are typically the second largest controllable expense for most organizations. The decision to scale back business travel during the economic downturn, it is still fresh in travelers, managers' minds that help businesses realize how much of the impact travel has on the top and bottom line of organizations. Why, you ask? Because there's a direct correlation between corporate travel and revenues. Face-to-face interaction is one of the most effective ways to close deals and develop customer relationships. I'm from the old school. I like the eye-to-eye contact. There's still something in that. Organizations are instilling more tighter controls and governances on business travel. They're looking to minimize costs, streamline purchasing and reporting, and gain control over the expense while obtaining a more comprehensive understanding of travelers' impacts. The challenge is that travel is complicated. According to the 2012 Aberdeen Group report, travel managers cite their top concerns in controlling travel expense as, number one, lack of compliance with corporate policies. Number two, limited analytics. Number three, processing and booking costs. Driving value from your T&E spend calls from new strategies like leveraging leading-edge technology, reporting comprehensive spend capture, driving stricter T&E policy compliance based on what travelers need most and while they're on the road. Leveraging enhanced spend and visibility to increase control internally and negotiate stronger vendor relationships and closer expenses and integrated expenses, managing objectives, very critical elements of running any kind of travel program. BMO Financial Group recommends three essential ingredients. Number one, ease to use of technology, gain an organization-wide view of travelers' behavior, spend so that travel managers can see anomalies and opportunities. Number two, clear enforcement policies that align your travel objectives and intelligence across the organization. Number three, detailed data that empowers travel managers to identify where surprises can occur, gives the travelers the tools they need to make the entire reporting process seamless. Data, as it always is the foundation for optimizing a sound T&E program. It gives travel managers the ammo to negotiate rates with preferred suppliers and pinpoint the best opportunities to trim costs. Accessing and correlating that data is a true challenge these days. For example, many businesses make the mistake of relying primarily on the travel data supplied by their travel management partner, which only provides information on booked charges. As we all know, that business travelers will incur charges from multiple sources. And the agency data won't necessarily be able to show additional taxes, auxiliary fees, any activity that represents a change from what was included on the itinerary. For capturing true data, behavior, and all of the additional nuances, corporate travel card is the powerful tool and the essential tool for organizations. And by tracking all charges associated with the business trip, includes airfare, hotel rates, as well as package fees, taxes, and other miscellaneous charges. Organizations can establish the true costs and far more accurate forecasts. Travel spend, which has a direct impact on the bottom line of organizations, which is clearly where we are looking at in all situations now with our clients in the business. The most effective T&E program needs support in the financial goals of the entire organization. The empowered travelers to make the right decisions, because word warriors, as we all are these days, it's getting tougher and tougher out there and making our trips easier as we go A to B, and it's not always that fun. To achieve this, the travel managers need to ensure the maximum collection of travel data and develop a communication and formula policy that standardizes the process for the organization. This includes documenting guidelines and planning for executing travel, mandating use of all corporate card travel for a business business travel. I'd like to emphasize that one again, mandating. That's a critical element that I've been talking about for 25 years in the corporate card business. It's critical to the business that your program only works as well as your mandated process is within your organization. Expenses and making it easier to separate business and personal charges in expense reporting. With a standardized process, communication and enforcement of the corporate travel policy becomes easier and more effective. It's a basic stepping stone to teeny optimization, but it's only one that many organizations mismanage. How? By not getting buy-in for travelers in the beginning. That's a critical element in any successful program. When a policy doesn't properly account for the needs of the traveler, it creates friction, entices travelers to act outside of the policies. Talk to your travelers. Find out what they really need to be productive on the road, because it's tough out there. Movies, mini charges will remain personal expenses. That's an obvious. But establishing a more dynamic system of dynamic per diems based on travel locations and allowing the purchases of hotel, Wi-Fi as an example, could lead to higher compliance, employee productivity on the road. And higher compliance rates mean greater productivity, will mean more significant financial benefits to the organization. The next generation of expenses management will rely on real-time data, feeds that provide visibility, intelligence around the travel policies and spending, and the impact on travel on the organization overall, which includes visibility into both planned and current travel, as well as corporate travel budgets. To optimize consolidated data from different channels, businesses should leverage savvy third-party data aggregators that can combine channel-specific data sets, provide data and analytics in real time. This will offer the travel team the necessary information to make quick decisions on supplier policies and supporting the strategies of the organization. For most organizations, 8 to 12% overall budget goes to travel. It's a huge area that is ripe for the travel for savings and the right policies. Look at the current reporting structure and understand how existing policies impacts the bottom line. Travel managers have a golden opportunity to be strategic resources for their organization, and streamlining travel processes and leveraging travel data to negotiate deals with preferred vendors is a critical starting point of achieving the bottom lines. BMO, with its holistic portfolio of payment solutions, best-in-class Diners Club corporate card programs, expert advisors, can help achieve the organization-wide travel program successes. We're built on that reputation. Tools like MasterCard, Travel Dashboard, automated reconciliation applications, and expense management solutions give travel managers a 360-degree view of their programs, enable them to make even more effective strategic to their organizations. This has been an exciting week. I want you to enjoy the panel that's coming up behind me, combining the next, and please stop by our booth in the BMO. What's the booth number? It's 1731. And love to see you folks come by. We'll be handing out our USB drives that include tools to helping you develop and manage travel policies. Works for you, your travelers, and your organization. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome GBTA Executive Director and COO, Mike McCormick.
Good morning, everyone. We are in for a fantastic panel here this morning. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from 3 luminaries of the travel industry, representing the 3 fundamental elements of travel: airline, hotel, and GDS. This panel will be discussing opportunities and challenges and sharing insights about the state of the industry, exploring important questions like, what is the future of business travel likely to look like over the next few years? What risks and opportunities do we face in a world of new distribution models, technological advancements, and industry consolidations? And how will we reach a whole new generation of travelers? To help us get answers to these questions and many more, let me now introduce this morning's moderator, a man who's no stranger to the discussion. He is now the Dean of External Relations with the University of Virginia's Darden School Foundation, which is also our partner for education in the Academy. and he's a longtime friend of GBTA and a longtime friend of mine. I can't think of a better person to lead this discussion this morning. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Tripp Davis.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mike, and thanks to the leadership of GBTA for an incredible convention, and as Mike mentioned, for their leadership in setting up GBTA Academy. If you haven't signed up yet, in September at the University of Texas, and then in March again at the University of Virginia. It's an amazing, amazing curriculum that's been developed, and it's really here for you. A couple of quick contextual comments to get us going. I'll introduce the panelists and we'll get into it. First, let's do a show of hands. Who's here for the first time to the GBTA convention? Fantastic. We welcome you with open arms. We're excited to have you here. All right, maybe we have some veterans. Who's been here for 10 years or more? Let's go. All right, maybe 15? More? All right, that's terrific. As we get into the discussion, we're going to go from, let's say, legacy to modern age. Check out this image for a minute. Anybody know what this is? Yell it out. What do you think it is? Yeah, that's right. 1927. A roadside root beer stand in Washington, D.C. This is how Marriott International started. Oftentimes when we start an entrepreneurship or innovation course at the University of Virginia, we look back at case studies like this. We look at what it takes for a business to evolve and to innovate into what it becomes today from where it started. And in conversing with each of these CEOs over the past month and thinking about the industry and what we're doing, you know, sometimes it's like a TV drama where it's the same old stuff. All you got to do is watch it for 5 minutes and you're plugged back in. Same old stuff from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You might be fatigued. You might be weary. It's the same old issues that we face in the industry. But the fact is, what I heard in speaking to these CEOs were passionate insights. Insights about the economic outlook, the global forces at play, industry consolidation, the evolution of distribution, the traveler experience, mobility, big data in the analytics there, and the future of corporate travel. We're going to cover these topics, and we're going to get into it and have a good time with it. So, as we get into it, let's introduce our panelists. First, David Cush. David Cush joined Virgin Atlantic in December of 2007, formerly a longtime executive with American Airlines and also an executive with the National Airline of Argentina. Welcome, David Cush. Yes, sir. Next, Mr. Barney Harford. Barney joined as Chief Executive Officer of Orbitz in January of 2009. Previously a longtime executive with Expedia, running many things, creating their hotel model and running the Asia Pacific operations and the partnership with Elong. Barney's a UK native. We welcome Barney. Next, Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Luis Maroto. Luis started as the Chief Executive Officer of Amadeus in December of 2011 and has long-time experience with Amadeus, running the global operations, and as a native Spaniard. Welcome, Luis. Mr. Arne Sorensen, our next CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Marriott International, becoming the CEO this year in March of 2012, having served in many executive capacities, including running the European operations. Little known fact, Mr. Sorensen was born in Tokyo. Welcome, Arne. as we get started, we want to take, this is an incredible opportunity, thinking about a fresh outlook. Each one of these CEOs has been in the job for 4 years or less. You think about young, spry, adventurous CEOs, and one of the things that we do each year in this Luminaries panel is we have a mystery CEO contest, all right? And this is up for you to guess. So back in 2010, this was one of our panelists. Anybody remember who this was? Gary Kelly, Chief Executive Officer of Southwest Airlines, at a Halloween party there at Southwest. Last year, Brian Bedford, CEO of Republic of Frontier Airlines. This is Brian on Undercover Boss, the show. And you know what he's doing there? Right? He's emptying the lav, right? That's the lav line coming out of the back of the plane. All right, now this year, we've got our mystery CEO. Now, this is one of these 4 gentlemen here climbing a mountain. Now, hold your thoughts. We're going to come back to this in about 45 minutes. We're going to see who this is and maybe get a few insights from it. All right, with that, let's start our panel. We want to start with the probably the most pressing topic for all of us, which is the economy, and get the views of our teammates here on the economic outlook. And it seems that we can't go any minute or any day without reading about news in Europe. And what's the next shoe to drop? What do we need to be worried about globally? Luis, you're here. We've got to come to you first. Spain's been in the news in the past couple of days. What's your outlook for the economy?
I mean, unfortunately, it's extremely difficult to have a view of that. If you will ask me 1 week ago, probably I will be much more optimistic. But every day you see different things happening in the press. The situation is becoming very difficult. As you know, the situation with the euro and the way the European community was built is showing today that it was not the right approach. And today we have Spain, but there are news about other countries that can enter into the same situation. So I am optimistic at the end. I think the people and the politicians will take the right measures to really go through this period of uncertainty. But in the short term, I believe the news are not over. And unfortunately, Europe will struggle. Some countries are already in recession. And unfortunately, news are not positive in the short term. But as I said, I think in the medium term, things should recover, and we should talk more about business and less about the situation in the economy.
When you say short term and medium term, can you give us a sense of what that means to you?
That's impossible to answer, to be honest. But I will say the next minimum 6 to 12 months will be tough, in my personal view, in Europe.
Will be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got another 6 to 12 months of a rough road. Others might have opinions
Hopefully.
on this. Yeah.
Well, we're largely
Dave.
domestic, and it's a little bit of a different situation for us because actually a lot of the things that are very troubling on the macro sense worldwide are actually quite good for the United States. We've got very low interest rates, so if you're out doing things like what we're doing, financing aircraft for growth, you're doing it at rates that you have never seen, such as what you see in the mortgage markets. Commodity prices are softer than they have been, which is good for a lot of manufacturing in the U.S. as well as for the airline business. And then when you look at the sector that's softest in the U.S. and has been for the last couple of years, it's really more around housing and construction, which are largely local businesses that don't really generate a lot of travel anyway. So as ugly as it looks like on the global stage and as many challenges as there are, I think from a domestic U.S. standpoint, things are actually looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Other thoughts on that?
I actually think even if you look in just Europe, which is clearly the part of the globe that we are most fearful of, you see positive signs about the state of the global economy. So you look at demand into places like Paris and London. These are global destinations. They're performing extremely well as we speak. Even before the Olympics starts, London has been a very strong performer. Paris has been a very strong performer. Why? Has nothing to do with the European economy, maybe obviously, but because you've got these global travel trends based on economic growth in Asia, to be sure, but also in sub-Saharan Africa and in Latin America. and people want to go to these places. And of course, as the euro weakens, it becomes cheaper to go to those places. And so from a microcosm of the travel business in Europe, you see strength even in the midst of that European weakness. Now you can go to provincial UK, or you can go to some of these German cities. My German friends hate to say that Germany doesn't have a destination like Paris or London, but mostly true. You go to some of these markets and they are much more dependent on local economic factors, and they are much harder hit because of it.
Yeah. What about the U.S. market, as you see, especially hotels, whether it's RevPAR rate, the contract rates? What do we look at now? What, especially from a buyer perspective, what do you think they should be looking at, over the next year or so?
Higher rates. Don't throw me out right away. I am an optimist about the U.S. economy. So as we sit here today, we are in the third year, basically, of a good, strong recovery, albeit from the worst decline we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it was a deep hole that we fell into, and we're still not out of that hole. And it's one reason rates, I think, will continue to rise. As we sit here today, occupancy is back essentially above peak levels in most markets in the United States. Rates are probably 10 to 15% lower than they were in 2007. Again, it varies city by city. That means hotels are at meaningfully lower levels of profitability today than they were in 2006 and 2007. All of you know this, most of the world doesn't, but the hotel industry is filled with third-party owned hotels. We don't own anything really ourselves. We run the hotels or we franchise the hotels. And those hotel owners are under enormous pressure. And so they are still struggling to climb out of that hole, but increasingly they've got confidence that we'll do it.
So a question to the group, any other insights based on maybe particular markets or particular tiers of travel where you might be able to see some activity or signs?
What I think in the US economy is particularly exciting is travel is such an integral part of the US economy, and the growth that we're seeing in jobs that travel is creating here is strong. 271,000 jobs were created in the travel industry in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
It's growing 26% faster than the rest of the economy. And a lot of that is about the work that's being done to make the US a more attractive destination for folks around the world. Significant progress being made on visa waiver program, reducing visa wait times, and then the efforts that the industry is taking around Brand USA to go and make the USA a more attractive destination. And I think that that's a really interesting thing for us to be seeing, and very positive for the economy in general. And it's great to be able to do that in the context of these exchange rate fluctuations. The weaker euro is certainly, from our perspective, as you look at the industry in Europe, making travelers less excited about the long-haul trips to the US and focus more on short-haul destinations as a result of that currency and the general macroeconomic concerns. So making the US a more attractive destination for countries around the world is just great news for the economy overall.
So as we think about this topic, the economy, let's really zero in on corporate travel outlook, as many of the folks here, whether they be vendors or buyers, and here we are, July, getting ready to tip into August. If we're on a calendar cycle, we're getting ready to go right into budget season and to plan for next year. What recommendations would you have from an economic perspective to say, to those that are buying thousands and millions of dollars of corporate travel? Should they be planning, in a way that's optimistic? Travel being one of the top 2 or 3 discretionary spend categories in any organization, those throttles are pretty loose, right? You can move it around pretty quickly. What do you think, Luis?
I will be optimistic. I think at the end, the world is not Europe. Of course, what happens in Europe will have an impact, but emerging economies are expected to grow this year 5.6%. So this is very healthy, and it will increase as a weight of the total. So the overall economy is doing fine. Okay,
Yeah.
It will have an impact based on the situation of Europe. But I think overall we should be optimistic about the traffic volumes and the future evolution of the industry completely. I mean, and there are some countries still growing double-digit. It seems also China is being a bit weaker now, but we see very strong growth in some parts of the world today. So it's not a general recession, and therefore overall I will be optimistic. Yes, completely.
Other thoughts on it?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. One is I think certainly as the economy gets stronger, hopefully what we're going to see is more people out on the road selling their products and protecting their customer base, as well as hoping to expand their business. So, you know, I live in the Silicon Valley, I live in San Francisco, and as much as we keep talking about technology replacing travel, it doesn't replace travel. It's complementary to travel. And if you want to have that human contact that's important with your employees and certainly with your customers, you've got to get on an airplane, and you've got to stay in a hotel, and you've got to make a booking and everything else. You know, I think the other interesting thing probably this year and next year will be the impact of consolidation in the airline industry on your ability to negotiate as travel buyers, and the fact that you know, you're dealing with fewer players out there, and what that ends up meaning in terms of the balance of power between the supplier and the buyer. And I think that's really just starting to play out right now.
All right.
This is an environment where all of you who manage travel, this is when you earn your stripes. We have rates going up because occupancy is high. If you look back at the last two recoveries we've had coming out of a recession, so coming out of 2001 and 2, horrible times, but you look at what happened with hotel rates, for example, in 4, 5, 6, and 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 really, or you go back to the 90s, coming out of the first Gulf War, and you look at the performance again in the essentially 93 through 2000, what you see is a fairly normal progression where initially it's building occupancy. Rate doesn't start to move at all until occupancy is up. But as occupancy gets up back towards sort of midweek full hotels, you start to see rate move. And the industry, this has happened the last 2 recessions. Bill Marriott's told me he'd been through 9 or 11 recessions, whatever. I don't remember that many. But in a sense, we're at the same stage now where we will start to see more and more of this, which is driven by rate growth. And that's where being active in managing where your people going, where they're staying, which airlines they're using, how do you make sure you have control, how do you make sure you have the right data, is the kind of tool that it's so essential to use to make sure you're getting, you know, as much efficiency out of that as you can.
So let's shift from talking about the economy to maybe talking about globalization, global forces. Arnie, you mentioned it. Really the movement across continents, across borders has fundamentally changed. You're thinking about the introduction of these 4 gentlemen. Each one of you has had not just a stint, but significant work experience, life experience in different countries around the world. And as you look at your businesses and where you're developing the priorities, and let's take it from the perspective of your own businesses first, and then maybe we can look at, you know, some of the other impacts on what does a global footprint mean? You know, and it means different things in different categories, that's for sure. But you know, Barney, you've got a lot of different brands and different segments that you serve. Right. And how do you guys think about global, so to speak?
Sure, no, it's a great question. I think from our perspective, when we face our supplier partners, in particular on the hotel side, we see very much a global network, and we're bringing relationships and the benefit of those relationships to all of our brands through one common supply-facing organization. When it comes to our consumer-facing and our corporate travel-facing brands, those are more oriented towards specific geographies on the consumer side, Orbitz.com, cheap tickets, eBookers in Europe, and then the Asia-Pacific side, Hotel Club. And then Orbitz for Business is a global offering with particular folks in the US, but also a broad global network. But I think we are seeing an increasing globalization of travel. The ability for an organization such as ourselves or some of the other large global providers to be able to provide that global supply footprint is absolutely critical to the offering. And when that's backed up with technology, which is able to go and empower consumers and allow them fundamentally to make smarter decisions for themselves, I mean, that's really where the industry's going.
Yeah, yeah. Big investments by Marriott. Right?
Barney started with some comments about visa access to the United States, and let me, this is an issue I love. I can go on too long about it, but let me give you some statistics on this. Globalization of travel and the new golden age of travel is a massive force globally. If you look at it just from the United States, and this is, I think, a mostly American crowd, we have about 5 million hotel rooms in the United States. Every street corner, whether it's in a small town in Iowa or the big city like Boston, whether it's a Ritz-Carlton hotel or a Motel 6, 5 million rooms. There is a potential from China alone within the next few years to have 100 million annual outbound travelers. If the US had its fair share, it could have easily 10 million of those Chinese travelers every year. 10 million. They come and they stay at least a week on average. Now, sadly, they won't all stay in hotels. We're working on that. But many of them will stay in hotels, and you can do the math to see that 10 million visitors, maybe 70 million room nights in an industry which is only 5 million rooms, what the ramifications are for that, for the hotel space, but it's exactly the same for the airlines, restaurants, retail, and that's one country. That doesn't count Brazil, that doesn't count India, that doesn't count all these other places. And that's only an American perspective on it. You can see why Barney raises it early. President Obama is finally talking about it and saying that his target is to move global visitations to the United States from about 60 million to about 100 million over the course of the next 6 or 7 years. Those are exports by the United States. Yeah. Those will create hundreds of thousands, if not millions of jobs in the United States. And the United States is in effect competing with every other destination in the world, or should be, to get that business. And that huge body of traveling people, many traveling for the first time. Sometimes it's leisure travel, often it's business travel. Often they are coming out of environments where there is no real management of that travel. And so for each of us, there will be different opportunities that present themselves from this. But almost every one of you will have an opportunity to be impacted by this in a positive way. And again, if you look selfishly from an American economy perspective, you can say, we ought to deal with visa access, we ought to deal with promotion of the United States. If you look at it from the perspective of a global hotel company, for us it's about establishing our brands in the source markets as well as the destination markets, making sure we use our loyalty program, making sure that we deliver service that people like, that we recognize them in the languages that they're comfortable with, we serve them the food they want to have, all of those things which are things that we're working on.
Yeah. Luis, the footprint for Amadeus is dramatically global.
Well, I think the globality is a reality, it's a fact. Yeah. I mean, we are in 195 countries, but for me it's important to be everywhere because travel is global. I mean, people travel for business, for leisure, and you need to be present and you need to provide a commonality of solutions and content independently of the countries. Of course, you then need to adjust to the specific needs of each country, which is, are not the same, of course. I mean, but even within Europe, we are not the same. I mean, the proof is now that it's difficult to understand each other. So the whole world has particular needs and opportunities, but I think, as I said, there is a lot of growth coming from countries that are evolving their economy, are traveling much more, and China was giving us an example, that's for sure. But there are many countries growing healthy. And this is unstoppable. So as companies become more global, because the whole business is becoming more global, companies like ourselves that are giving us support on the technology front to these companies need to be global by all means. There is no discussion about that.
I think one of the interesting topics when you think about corporate travel management is this term we've heard for many years, global consolidation, you know, of the management of a travel program. And it's used as sort of a moniker, maybe too generally. You know, is this something that, how do you really manage a global program with all the differences that happen regionally? And is that something that you all as executives in different categories see as, we've had a fundamental trend over the past 20 years of a consolidation with travel agencies, with certain vendors, with certain actual travel procurement policies and mandates. What do you see in terms of that global look of managing a corporate travel account? Anybody have a view on where that might go?
Well, I'll start from the airline side, you know, and I've been with Virgin America for just under 5 years, but spent really the lion's share of my career at American. And I think what you're going to see from the airline side is the suppliers are going to approach this globally. They haven't really been able to in the past just because of you know, the restrictions you have on cross ownership and things like that. But I think if you look in particular at what American's doing with British Airways and with Japan Airlines and Qantas and LAN Chile to a lesser extent, is they're forming, you know, they're forming structures, financial structures, that will make them indifferent to metal. And so what that means is that they don't care if the person flies on BA or on American or on JAL, that it'll all come out in the wash. So what you're going to see going forward is, whereas perhaps American had leverage points in certain places in the US to try to gain Heathrow traffic as an example, now you're going to have multiple leverage points across the globe that they're going to use to go in and try to obviously reduce discounts or drive up rates. So I think that's really going to be the interesting thing going forward, is as you had these guys still competing with each other, now that they can actually sell as a group and use these vast networks with these huge, powerful hubs all over the world to come in and sell to you, what does it mean for how you buy? And I think, again, if I were sitting in your shoes, I would be thinking, if I'm going to keep up with these guys, I've got to globalize how I procure, because the guys that are selling to me are going to globalize how they sell.
Fantastic. You know, when you think about the profile of these four individuals, 3 of the 4 born outside of the U.S., Arnie in Tokyo, Luis in Spain, Barney in the U.K., and, you know, Shreveport, Louisiana. Some might say that is a different country.
Yes.
Right? The food, the language, I don't know, David, is that? But this, I think, it's fascinating to say, like you said, Arnie, mostly an American crowd. We're here in Boston, but there's a fundamental difference in the view and what we have accessible to us in a matter of seconds through our fingertips, you know, on certain devices. And what I'd like to do is transition and talk about the traveler experience, you know, and everything from the booking process to the actual en route, in-flight, in-room experience, and what you see as happening, fundamental changes. What do you think? Barney, you want to start us off? What are we seeing now? Where's this going?
Yeah, we think that you know, the traveler, the customer, is absolutely at the center of everything we do. And we fundamentally believe there's so much opportunity to use technology to transform that traveler experience and the way that consumers around the world plan and purchase travel. And when it comes to corporate travel, that's particularly important because it has historically been a more challenging process for consumers. And we believe there's so much opportunity to use technology to make that process better, both for the traveler and also for the corporation. We are fundamentally about using technology to empower the customer. And we just think that's better all around. And through the kind of technology offerings that we've been developing and others in the industry doing the same kind of thing, we are able to put in the hands of consumers, wherever they may be, on a PC or post-PC, the capabilities to access corporate negotiated rates, compliance, security, policy, while also being able to tap into that ease of use that makes it so easy for that customer to go and make the decision themselves. That saves money because, one, you haven't got somebody on the other end of a phone having to go and run up costs and making a transaction. But secondly, we just find that travelers make better decisions for their companies than a third-party agent. They're more aligned with the interest of their individual employer. Of course, they're also happier because they're able to make the right kind of trade-offs for their particular travel decision. So we drive something like 90% online adoption across that online booking capability, and that results in just a much higher level of traveler experience and savings. And I think that is for us what is so exciting. It's the use of technology to go and help companies make better use of their travel dollars. Agree with Arnie completely. Travel is such an incredible tool to facilitate business and interactions, but you've got to use those constrained dollars as effectively as possible.
So clearly a impassioned message about technology, and at the same time, Arnie, weaving in, okay, what about mandating certain tools and mandating certain policies for the corporate traveler and that traveler experience? As you say, maybe left to their own, they might make better decisions or decisions that they feel better about. And here we've got 2 suppliers on the stage where, you know, booking direct on a supplier site or with a supplier is certainly commonplace and a part of the process. So what do you think?
So I think that the right balance there is critical. We believe that there's significant role for the managed travel contributions that a managed travel department will go and make in terms of rate negotiation, in terms of policy compliance, and the critical security features of making sure that the duty of care is respected. But that can be done in a way that respects the traveler's desire to be able to make decisions and to allow them to refine their travel based on their particular schedule needs. So you can have both. It uses technology to do so.
Yeah, well, let's go. Maybe Arnie, pick it up from a so-called supplier perspective on
well, maybe start with some things that we think won't change, and maybe it's essential for us that they not change. But those would be service, product, and probably something around security and safety. So starting with service, even when you get to the younger generation, think about my young adult kids and their travel and their friends, people still like to be treated friendly, well, openly. That greeting is hugely important, particularly checking into a hotel. And it's important that we make sure that we keep the service so that for all of you who are managing travel, you hear from your folks, you know what, I really like the way I'm taken care of at Marriott, and I want to go there, and that they use their influence internally, hopefully on our behalf. And the product is important too. So you think whether it's an experience about the bed or the food you're getting in the restaurant or the bar in the lobby where you like to hang out, whatever it is that's important to you, we want to make sure that that makes sense. Probably a newer thing, but it's now already a decade or so, is around this security and safety question. Do you know where your people are? Right. When there is an event that happens, can you find them? Do you have the data to do it? Do you have the management tools in place to allow it to happen? That will continue to be a force which I think is extremely important to all of travelers. It's important. It's important for us when our people are on the road. And we've got to make sure that we're connecting with our customers in a way that allows that to happen. So I think those are things that are really important, and they will stay really important, even as we go to this technology-enabled mobile world in which David Townsend and I were talking this morning, who's here on our team, about our adult kids, and they never call anybody anymore. You know, it's all emails or text messages or something else. And so you've got this shift away from voice and away from some of these traditional things to what do we do with our little mobile devices? How do we check in with them? How do we get restaurant reservations from the hotel as we're checking in? How do I check Barney's prices against somebody else's prices when I'm walking around? How do you satisfy that impulse and that customized experience? Yeah. And that's going to be a huge area of change. But again, there's almost as much which is not changing.
So the real question, Arnie, is how are you performing in this world of technology with those adult kids? And you know, are you texting? Are you running at pace with them?
There's no way I'm running at pace with them. But like all of you, I'm connected all the time.
So I might fall. My dad is 72, and I got a text message this morning at about 7:58 that was meant for someone else. So I quickly informed him, "Hey, Dad, I think this was meant for so and so." And he said, "Yeah, I'm still getting up to speed here."
That's impressive.
Yeah, he's on it though. He's trying hard. He's fat finger though. All right. Yeah.
My 11-month-old did the same thing.
Your 11-month-old, right?
About 2 weeks ago, sent an email. The first email he sent, I was very impressed. My mistake.
Luis, when we talked a few weeks ago, you really talked passionately about end-to-end and the service and the traveler experience in that planning process. And what do you think? Where are we going with the traveler experience? And you're a major technology enabler, obviously, around the world.
I mean, my view is that we have still a way to go. Travelers still experience frustration when they travel about the integration of different services that we are offering to them, about the level of information, about the search today. It's not any longer a search from, a flight from New York to Paris. I mean, they are looking for a combined offer, end-to-end. And it's true there is a lot of data and information outside, and this is positive because they become more knowledgeable. But at the same time, this information is being much more fragmented today than it used to be. So there is a clear need of integrating this content to see what is relevant, because data and information is endless these days. So we need to really make sure that the real content and the content that makes sense for the traveler is offered to them. The offer is much more personalized, in my view. It will not be enough to really offer the same to everybody. So personalization of the offer will happen. Different ways of search, more integrated. And then, as I said, the content integration and the simplification of everything that we are doing, in my view, should be something that we need to work, all of us, on that. That's my personal view.
David, the Traveler Experience, we're talking about one of the most well-known brands in the world, and you spend a lot of time in investing in that experience. Tell us a little bit about it and where you think it's going.
Well, actually, I want to answer the previous question first.
Go for it.
And, you know, it's an interesting place, San Francisco and the Bay Area right now. You know, you're kind of, I think it's a interesting point in time there just because of everything that's going on and just being kind of immersed in technology. And I'll make two comments about where I think this is going. The first one is the PC, of course, is dead. No one's interested in it anymore. All they're interested in is mobile. You know, we've got a new employee portal that's coming out next month that is mobile optimized, not mobile enabled. That actually the mobile site will be the primary site, the PC or a tablet will be the secondary site, very simply because our people who are very young have said, I'm not sitting anywhere to read what you want to send me. You better get it to me on my phone so I can check it on the subway or wherever else. The second thing, if you look at where Google and Facebook and all of these guys are investing, they are scared to death right now on what's going on with mobile because their product is not a mobile focused product. So if you see where the guys that are the smartest in this space are investing their money, they're investing in mobile. What I find a little frustrating about travel is that we're behind this time. That in the past we've always been ahead on these things when it came to PC and things like that. Now we're behind. And if you look at the technology that's available to solve all of your problems, so whether it's a procurement, whether it's the security stuff so that you know where all your people are with checking in and location-based technology, it's all there. It's just no one's figured out how to put it together. When someone does, it's not going to be a matter of you forcing someone to go within policy. They're going to actually want to go there because that's going to be the one place that can manage their entire travel life. So hopefully you guys figure it out or someone else in the audience figures it out, because I think it's going to be the most empowering thing to everyone who's a corporate travel manager. Getting back to the onboard stuff, you know, I think this is one of the big benefits of consolidation in the U.S. You know, you look at the negative side, and certainly there's some impact on service to smaller communities, impact on choice, ultimately an impact on price. But the very positive side is you're seeing U.S. airlines start to invest in their product again. American had a big announcement yesterday. United, Delta, and others have invested in their product. So I think what you're seeing is the U.S. taking its rightful place in terms of driving product quality in the airline industry, this being the largest market. We're doing the same thing. We've got a very different product out there, and what we find is the more you give people, the more demanding they are. We've got actually a new cabin that'll be coming out in about 12 months that'll be very different than it is today. But what I will tell you is people don't want to look at the back of a seat anymore. They want a screen there, number one. And number two, you've never seen anyone so pissed off as getting on an airplane when they thought there was Wi-Fi and there isn't. So, you know, so I think fleet-wide Wi-Fi is just going to become, you know, one of the table stakes for a lot of folks going forward.
We were talking, that's the only refuge, right? To get away from email and cell phone calls and all the rest of it. You get on an airplane and
you don't have to turn it on if you don't want it.
that makes it personally challenging.
Yes.
Let's extend the conversation about technology into data. It's been mentioned a number of times, and you just mentioned it, where some folks call this, you know, big data, some call it business intelligence, some call it analytics, some call it algorithms. You know, there are a lot of different ways to describe it, and I'd like to get your perspectives on how you're approaching what really is an explosion of data points. Every single keystroke, every single move of the mouse, so to speak, of course transaction data and so forth, is being tracked or is trackable. What does it mean to you and your organizations, and where do you see it? See the opportunities strategically, around data? Ready? Barney, to go?
Sure. We think there's a phenomenal opportunity to use information about how consumers plan and purchase travel to improve that experience. And it's stuff that we have, in fact, over the last 3 years, really oriented the entire company around. We're becoming a travel data company. And that manifests itself throughout what we do. It manifests itself, for example, in the way that we develop algorithms to work out which hotel we should show to customers. In a corporate travel program, for example, it is incorporating the appropriate negotiated rates for clients that have negotiated rate relationships, with also taking into account the preferences that customers have shown within that corporate travel channel in terms of recent popularity, to go and work out what's the most relevant hotel to show, while also factoring in relevance and location as one example. But as we work to optimize the site experience, it's all about how do you create the framework to allow there to be hundreds and over time thousands of site experience tests that you're able to run on the website over the course of a year as you seek to improve the experience and make it easier for the customer to get through that purchase path. We have a team of PhD statisticians based between our Sunnyvale, Silicon Valley office and our Chicago facility of folks who are working with this data to go and find better ways to, one, run the business, and then two, optimize the site.
And if you can, what kind of data are these PhDs working on? Is this usage data, sort of the actual consumer experience on the site?
So a lot of the work that the Sunnyvale team is doing is on the consumer side in terms of marketing optimization, as you look at a massively long tail demand aggregation opportunity. But we'll do the same kind of thing on fraud scoring, for example, developing models to allow us to be more effective in determining which credit card, which transactions might be need to be queued to a fraud queue, or trying to work out better ways to go and drive efficiency in our customer service and call center facilities in terms of estimating call arrival rates and lining that up with schedules. There's so much opportunity to go and do things like that, and then to create versions of the site that take account of the particular customer and what they're doing, from the landing page, the search results, the transaction path, and then ultimately the kind of booking form. How do you go and create, first of all, an optimized experience, and then how do you create an experience that lines up with the particular place in the process that particular customer is doing? Yeah.
Luis, you probably, when we think about the census of this group, processing and handling by far the most data of anybody here, and your view from...
I mean, as I said before, I think the problem is not about data. Data is immense today. We have a lot of information. We need to define which data are relevant and needs to be tracked and prepared and packaged in a way that serves the business needs of corporations and also the business needs of the traveler. So we are working in developing technology there to really be able to get the profile, the preferences of the traveler. So there are many alternatives, many areas, but as I said, it's a matter of adjusting and tracking the data that at the end help us to take the right decisions. Yeah. But data is not today an issue from a technology point of view at all. On the contrary, I think it's more to really simplify the amount of information that we get. I mean, we talk now about the social media is adding another complexity of information in the hands of everybody, so we need to really see how we integrate all this information together.
So historically, the GDS players have been the data players, right? Yeah. The large data centers. You've had one of the largest data centers in the EU for a long time. How is it different now, and prospectively in the next couple of years, than it has been to say it's about transaction data and segments and PNRs and so forth? There's more to it, and what do you see coming?
I think the volumes have increased tremendously. I mean, the amount of searches and the amount of transactions you need to really travel today have nothing to do with 5-7 years ago, because people are searching much more, are looking into many more alternatives and options than they used to be. So this is generating much more volume in our transaction numbers and in our data center. And this will definitely continue as things evolve and the technology is supporting a way of searching and booking and traveling, which is giving more information. So that's an evolution that naturally will happen. As I said, the mobile is also adding another complexity and opportunity too. Social media is another way of getting references and information. So we need to allow this to happen. And at the end, as I said, track the right information, keep the right information, and provide that to our customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say two things. One is the way we look at it is, historically the way we've looked at it is we've considered demand to be what people have bought. And I think that's false, that there's lots of demand out there that ultimately wasn't met. So I think we're looking at two things. One is if someone comes into our website and they don't buy, why they don't buy. So we can go in and track with Tea Leaf and other different diagnostics. Did they just get lost? Did they get frustrated? Or did they actually get somewhere and not like what they saw and bailed? The second thing that I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of is how do you untruncate demand? So right now, again, we consider demand to be what people have bought in the past. The question is how many people came in and shopped and didn't buy, and why didn't they buy, and what can you learn from that? So I think that's just what we're starting to get our arms around. And when you start talking about big data, is not the people that bought, but the perhaps 90% of the people who shopped but didn't buy, and how you can bring those people in the future.
Arnie, you want to wrap us up on this? Think about one of the most respected brands in the world, and you know, so many touch points.
Yeah, data and technology and mobile is so broad, and partly because of your disciplines, you've tended to talk about how to sell and how to market, how to sort of anticipate demand or create demand, and that's a huge, huge opportunity here. But there are places where it's a much more basic question, and then it's a question of, well, which data do you need and how do you use it? So people, when you check into our hotels, most of you like to be recognized and made to feel like we care about you, right? So welcome back. Maybe it's good if we know something about how important you are as a customer. You're totally creeped out, though, if you think we know what you did in the room the last time you were there. By the way, we don't. But you get the point. And then you say, okay, now how many phones should we have in a guest room today? We all carry our cell phones now. Nobody uses a hotel phone for anything maybe than room service, right? You don't use it even for a wake-up call anymore. How do we allow people to check in? These are things that the customers say, we want you to get with us to a place where we can use our tools to be more efficient and to be more, it's more about the way we live our lives. So we've got all of that stuff going on. Yeah. Ironically, with all of this data and all of these mobile devices, we are also losing control. You're losing control because every one of your people is out with a different piece of equipment, using different websites, using different social media sites, and you may give them one way to book a room, but they've got 1,000 new ways to book a room. Yeah. And they're going to be out there sort of using those things. So how do you find a way to say, that's going to happen, it's inevitable it's going to happen. We want to embrace it because it's the way our people want to live, but at the same time we need to manage their experience. We need to get pricing to them that's as negotiated and attractive as possibly can be. We need to know where they are. So little things, we announced a Concur thing yesterday. Some of you may not like that because it may feel like it's encroaching on your turf, but it's a way of finding a way to connect to this data which is out there being generated by our people all the time in a way that we don't control. How do you pull that back in so you can assess it and understand it? And then, you know, of course, do the things that these gentlemen talked about. How do we find a way to anticipate what people want, right? Barney had a very interesting media experience over the course of the last month or so about Apple devices and how much people pay for their rooms if they're Apple holders as opposed to PC holders. I think generally customers like it if you're offering something of value to them, right? So if they see Barney offering a room that you're more likely to want because of who you are, that's great. If they think for a second you're taking advantage of them because you know something about them which they maybe don't know about themselves, you're going to have hell to pay, right? Because they're going to say, I don't want to deal with that. And those lines are sometimes a little blurry and fuzzy.
So here we are. Let's a home stretch for us, and the elephant in the room. You've just mentioned it, Arnie. Is about control. You think about a travel program and what you're trying to run from a travel management company perspective or a travel procurement perspective. Let's take the last few minutes and look forward on the evolution of travel management, travel procurement, travel buying. How do we see this playing out? What is the role of the travel buyer, and what do we think from different perspectives that looks like over the next couple of years? This is about so many different options, and folks here are trying to say, how do I manage this? What do you think? Barney?
Our goal is to create, using technology, an offering that allows corporate travel buyers to make the best possible use of that constrained resource. And that involves creating a great customer experience, so you can go and both empower while also ensure that they're tapping into the most appropriate types of savings, discounts, and policies, while also supporting critical negotiations that are going to take place with key suppliers to make sure that the best possible value is being delivered and the best criteria are being defined as part of that program. So we think there's a whole load of opportunity for ongoing use of this technology and data to come together to go and put the corporation more and more in control of what is just a critical part of any company's activities. We think it's extremely exciting, and we're very, very positive about the opportunity. But we do think that it is about empowering both the traveler and the buyer to make the best use of those resources.
So that's an interesting balance as it plays out.
Yeah, and I would just say that the key thing there is control is just a very difficult concept, I think, for the young generation to get right now. What they want to be is empowered, they want to be enabled, they want to be liberated. And so you're really going to have to build something that they want to go to, something that facilitates their travel, and something that gives them the choices they want. Now, I say this very selfishly because a lot of young people on the West Coast especially like to travel on us, and they tend to rebel when we're not in a travel program. But I think if you want participation with the younger generation, certainly, God, I feel so old when I say that, that you really have to have the carrot. You have to have something where they know this is going to be an effective tool for how I manage my travel, rather than this is what the boss says I have to do.
Luis, Arnie?
I fully agree with that. I think we need to find a balance between these general policies and the control that we call, and between the fact that travelers want to have their own freedom in the way they operate, their own preferences, and well, this balance needs to happen. And on top of that, of course, yes, technology companies need to support the easiest process in managing the whole flow of the travel. That's for sure, in terms of content, in terms of tools, and in terms of solutions at the end. So on the one hand, you have the content and the solutions. On the other hand, you have the traveler that wants more freedom but need to be within a framework, in my opinion.
Arnie, bring us home.
I think it's been decades that it's been clear that value can be delivered by managing travel. And I don't think that's changing at all. I think there are still powerful reasons to manage travel, about making sure your folks get great experiences, you get good value, they're productive, all sorts of things which are pretty fundamental. And buyers still have powerful tools. You can say, we're only going to pay for it if you do X. Now you got to figure out, when is it really important to say X, and when is it okay to basically say, we're not going to demand that you only do X. You can do X, Y, and Z as an example, or maybe you could do A through Z. But there are a few places where we're going to say, we really need for you to work with us to do some things which we think are important, because if you do none of that, all your power is gone, really. And with that power being gone, you're no longer going to be able to deliver the value, and your ultimate customer won't get the benefit of that. And I think in many respects, as the rest of the world enters this space with really no management of travel, there are huge opportunities to bring much more value around this question. And again, you'll find here are the places where I can put some rules in place, and here are the places where I'm going to have a revolt, and it's not all that important, and you'll figure it out. But you can't be afraid to have some rules, or it's going to be chaos.
Much more of a managerial balance in understanding preferences and opportunities, maybe so than in the past.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, we have a little bit of unfinished business here as we wrap up, and you know, we think about everything we've talked about, and it does take someone that's young at heart, an adventurous spirit, to lead in this industry. All these changes, all these challenges, all these difficult circumstances. Anybody have a guess on who this is? It's Barney. No? Arnie. Arnie? David Cush. There are no mountains in Louisiana, according to David Cush.
There's not many in Chicago.
I don't think this is in Louisiana. That's right. All right, here we go. Ready for the reveal? This is Mr. Barney Harford.
All right.
In September of 2007. Yeah. One of the few that have summited this, this particular mountain, affectionately known as Mystere, right on the western border of China.
This was actually the first ascent of this mountain. It was on the border between Kyrgyzstan and China as part of an expedition in 2007. But we actually got to name the mountain, so it was kind of fun.
Incredible. Now, before we get too excited, I have some words of caution. Before we get really excited, let's definitely second guess Barney's recommendations on accommodations. And ground transportation. You know, we've got a room with a view here, that's for sure. But you know, those are personal preferences. You know, he can have those. But with all due respect, thank you very much for a terrific discussion. Arnie Sorensen, Luis Moroto, Barney Harford, and David Cush. Thank you all.